this demonstration, we'll take a look at how to configure a website for SSL so that web traffic is encrypted that's headed to that website. Now, what I did for this demonstration, because there's a lot of steps and there's a lot of bouncing around between windows with each of these steps, what I thought I would do is break the steps down into 5 steps. Which really makes it look a lot easier than what it appears as I do the demonstration. So these are our 5 steps that we need to go through to configure a website in IIS, which is Microsoft's web server for SSL. Our first step is we need to create a certificate request. And what I did here in brackets is I kind of made a note of where we do that. So to create a certificate request, we have to go to IIS. Well, we don't have to, but we're going to go to IIS to create that certificate request. There's a couple ways that we can create certificate requests, but we're going to do this from the actual web server. Now, what I want to stress is that when you create the certificate request, you're not creating a certificate. You're creating the certificate request. So it's a request saying, can I have a certificate? But you don't actually have a certificate when step 1 is done. You have a request that says, can I have a certificate? So my point being is this certificate request is saved as a text file. Now this is super important to understand because this took me a long time to understand. I remember years ago when I was trying to figure this out, I didn't realize that the first step was we created a certificate request, not a certificate. And that's important because eventually you're going to try to install a certificate later on down the road here in step 4. And I actually thought step 1, I had created the certificate. So I was trying to install this text file down here in step 4, and that's not the way you do it. And then once I realized the terminology that, oh, that's a certificate request I created in step 1. To install a certificate, you need to install this cert file, right? And I'll get to that here in a second, but that's kind of why I'm stressing the fact that step 1 is to create the certificate request. So in the end, my point is in step 1, when we're all done step 1, all we have is a text file in our hand, right? Now what we need to do is we need to submit that text file to the certificate authority. So step 2 is to submit the certificate request to the certificate authority. So we have a website. So there is a web enrollment form that we have set up on the certificate authority as part of the installation of the certificate server. So we're just going to submit the contents of this text file up to this URL. Once we do that, the certificate server will generate a certificate for us right away. And what we need to do in step 3 is we need to download that certificate. Once we download the certificate, then we've got this .cer file in our hands, and that is a certificate file. That's what gets installed on the web server to secure the communication between the web server and all of its clients. So once we download the cert file, then we can go and install it on the web server. And I made a note again, we do that here through IIS. Once we install the certificate on the web server, then we choose which website we want to use that certificate. And again, we do that in IIS. So what I'm going to do as I do this demonstration, it's going to make it a long demonstration, but what I'm going to do is I'm going to come back to our checklist here each step of the way to verify exactly what step we're on. Hopefully that'll kind of reduce some of the confusion as I bounce around between dialog boxes here. So step 1 is to create a certificate request. And like I said, we're going to do that through IIS. So I go to my start button. I'm on the web server. I go to Server Manager. Once in Server Manager, we go to the Tools menu and we launch the Internet Information Services Manager. Once we launch the Internet Services Manager, then what we're going to do is come down here to the server. We're going to expand it out and select it. And down bottom here, in all the different configuration settings, we're looking for server certificates. So it's in the IIS category, server certificates. And what this screen does is it shows you all the certificates that are installed on the server. And notice that we do have a create certificate request link there. So that's how we're going to start step one, is to create the certificate request. Now I got ahead of myself. I should show you, before I create the certificate request, I should show you the website. So if we launch the web browser, and I'm just going to go to worldwideweb.certworld.loc. It's our little website for the Security Plus material. So I've got my application logon. I can type my username and password in here. What I want you to notice is that it's an unsecure site. It's HTTP. And if I try to go to HTTPS and hit enter, I'm going to get an error message because it's not a secure site. So when this demonstration is done, I should be able to go to the HTTPS site. So we'll come back and check that. So back to my step. I'm step one, trying to create this certificate request. And we have over here on the right, create certificate request. So we choose that link. And then we fill in the form so that we specify the common name of the website that's going to be used in this certificate. Now what's important is you want to match the URL that the website is using. So worldwideweb.certworld.loc. Organization is going to be, company XYZ. Organizational unit, we'll go IT support, Halifax, Nova Scotia, Canada. And then we hit next. Wants to know what we want to use for the cryptographic service provider. We'll just go with the defaults here in the bit strength. So we'll choose next. And then it says, great, what's the file name that we saved the certificate request to? So we hit the three dots here, and we're just going to save it right to the, actually we'll save it to documents. And we're going to call it cert request. And notice that it's a text file. Perfect. So I hit finish. And again, in step one, all we've done is created a text file, which is the certificate request. So let's take a look at that text file. If I go to my documents, there's the text file that was created as a result of running through the certificate request wizard. I double click on it and there's begin new certificate request. So basically this certificate is the certificate request that we need to submit up to the server. So I'm going to copy that right now to my clipboard. So I highlighted it all, I choose edit copy, and the contents of that file is now in my Windows clipboard. So let's take a look at step two. Step two says, great, let's go and submit the certificate request. So it's the server's address. CertServe is the virtual directory that was created automatically during the installation of certificate services. So I come up here and we're going to do a HTTP : / I can't remember if it's a secure site by default. Cert SRV. Okay, so it's not. So this is the certificate services web enrollment website that got created automatically when I chose to install the web enrollment service. And this is kind of really cool because anyone can hit this and submit a request. So what we want to do is we want to request a certificate. They want to know what type of certificate. Is it a user certificate? And this is important. It's not a user certificate. User certificates are used for things like encrypting email and that. We're not trying to create a user certificate. We're trying to create a server certificate. So I can't choose that link. I got to go with the advanced request. I want to create an advanced request. It says, great, do you want to create and submit a request? No, and I'm kind of stressing this because, again, I found this very confusing learning this years ago. What I want you to understand, we've already created the request. We just want to submit it. So I know I don't choose this link. So I want to submit a certificate request by using an encoded file. That's what I want to do. So I choose that. And then this is where we paste the contents of the file. So I paste it into that form. Now, very important, it wants to know what the template is that we want to use, right? So in the Security Plus guide, we talked about the different types of certificates, and those are specified here by the template. So it is going to be a web server certificate. And then we hit submit. So as soon as I submitted it, it generated the certificate, and now there's a download certificate. So I'm going to click that link. It says, great, we're going to download the certificate. I'm going to choose Save As, and I'll save it to Documents with my other file. And we're going to call it my web server certificate. And then hit Save. Perfect. Now I'm going to open that folder just so we can see it. So notice that there's the certificate request, which is a text file, and there is our web server certificate that we created. Notice the icon is a little bit different. It looks like a certificate. Now I did get ahead of myself. Those few, step 2 and 3 kind of merged together, kind of. So we went to the URLs of certserve and submitted the contents of the text file. Instantly, it gave us a download link to download the certificate where we have the .cert file. Now what I need to do, I only have 2 steps left, and that is I need to install the certificate on the web server, which I do in IIS, and then I have to associate the certificate with a website once it's installed. So let's start with install the certificate on the web server. So I go back to IIS. Now within IIS, I go to my server node, and then over here in server certificates, going back to this screen, I'm going to double click. Here is a list of certificates that exist on the server. What I want to do is I want to complete a certificate request. So we created a request and then we submitted it, and as a result we were given a certificate. So we're going to complete the request operation by giving the certificate to the web server. So complete the certificate request. This is great. What's the file name containing the response from the CA? Well, the response from the CA was it gave us a certificate. So we highlight our web server certificate. Here you can give it a friendly name, and this friendly name is not it's not critical. It's how it's going to display in this screen right here, right? So this name column. So we're going to call it just web server certificate. And then choose OK. So there's our web server certificate for worldwideweb.certworld.loc. So that was step number 4. Now step number 5 is associate the certificate with the website. So what we need to do is in IIS, we need to go to our website. Here's our website. We need to right click on the website and choose Edit Bindings. Bindings is the protocols that are associated with the website, the protocols and the ports. So you can see HTTP is associated with the website. We're going to add an association, and we're going to say we want it to be HTTPS is the protocol. Notice down bottom here, this area of the screen is empty when HTTP is selected, but when I choose HTTPS, it gives us a list of certificates. I'll come back to the top part of the screen here in a second, but what I want to note is if, and I do this all the time, I forget to install the certificate on the server before going to the website. The reason why web server certificate is here is because we did step 4. Had we have skipped that step, this drop-down list would not have web server certificate. So that's why it's important you install the certificate on the server so that each website then has that certificate available to it. So HTTPS up top, we can choose a specific IP address for this website to listen on. We're going to keep it at all unassigned addresses, and we're also going to go with the default port for SSL, which is, or HTTPS I should say, which is port 443. I'm not going to bother configuring any of the other options here as far as like a host name for the website, but I am going to choose the web server certificate. Now we can view the certificate if we wanted to. So if I hit the view button, it'll show the details of the certificate. So I can see that the certificate was issued to worldwideweb.certworld.loc. The CA that gave or generated the certificate is server A. The certificate is valid for, looks like 5 years here. On the details, you can see the different algorithms that are being used. So, with Security Plus, we've talked about different types of hashing algorithms. So you can see which hashing algorithms are being used in this PKI infrastructure. So I'm going to hit OK here, and I'm just going to hit OK here. So use that certificate and then close. And then I'm going to close IIS down because that is it. So now let's test it out. Let's go to https://worldwideweb.certworld.loc. And you can see here this time I was able to get to the website where it's asking us to log on, and there's an HTTPS up top there. So it is a secure website. We can see the lock up top as well is showing that it's a secure website. So that's how we can configure a website to use SSL in order to secure the communication to that website.